Hello and welcome to Who Dares Rules TV. I am your host, Mike B. And we are at the tail end of May, staggering into June. This coming weekend would have been the Games Expo. Would have been my 7th, 8th Games Expo. That was not to be. However, it has currently been moved, as we know, to end of July. So it's coming. It's closer. It's closer. It's still there. It's just there. I can touch it almost. I'm going to go along in some capacity and see what's there. I have no idea what's going to be going on. If it occurs, and there's an if still at this point in time, is 21st of June is when we officially open up stuff for large conventions and stuff to happen. However, there is still lots of possibilities and variables at play here. Yes, so we'll see. Okay, but here we sit now at this point in 2021. It's a year into this pandemic and we still haven't quite grasped it. So we'll see. But if it happens, if it goes ahead in July, I will be there and we will see what there is. It is an expo. It's a reason to celebrate. I have been vaccinated. A lot of sensible people will have been vaccinated. The risk reward is kind of set at a fairly decent level, I think. I mean, as any we can hope. So we'll see. That's on the cards. We'll see. It's a new week, stuff going on. No prominent designers have done anything particularly stupid this week, so that's a good start, eh, Bruno? Wasn't it? That's a good, excellent.
I pierce you with the eck of love, flower.
Making creepy. Anyway, so let's do some news. Let's have a look at the news. So FFG teased a couple of days ago this image with some text about something vague. There's been scatterings of information coming in there, so there's a lot of conjecture on that. It's clearly some form of Lovecraftian Arkham horror related thing, as they kind of have their toes well and truly dipped into that particular tentacled bathtub. And so it was going to be more than that. The conjecture is, of course, that it is going to be the reskin, the Arkham flavoured jobby. That's not a terrible word. And Arkham BSG, Battlestar Galactica. Now out of print. Out of print. Based obviously on the TV show, which I've covered before. It's cracking. The first season was brilliant, and the game is very much focused on the shenanigans of that first season, of that breakneck pace chase of the Galactica constantly going out about the Cylons and all sorts of cool stuff. It is a very long, epic, hidden traitor game. The Resistance does a lot of what Battlestar does in a fraction of the time. However, the thing that Battlestar, when it works, and it does work more times than not, is whilst that's a long, epic, Lord of the Rings director's cut style, sprawling, evening-filled game of essentially a find the traitor situation. It's that narrative, that story, that sort of the stakes raising. You get a journey. You go on that journey, and it is incredibly satisfying. It is water cooler moments when your buddy, the president, your mate, turns out all along they've been fucking you because they're a Cylon. They're bastards. But yes, it is. Anyway, so yeah, I love Battlestar. I don't play it nearly enough. I've booked myself a Battlestar play. Now we are gathering back in to get a crack into this with some stuff. But yes, sadly, for some people out there, a lot of people, this is the grail. It is untouchable. I'm fortunate I was around at the time to be able to pick it up reasonably. Anyway, I've long preamble into the fact that essentially, yes, it looks like Arkham Horror Atlantica is the title that's linked to this thing, which is BSG in the Arkham universe. Storyline is it's a cruise ship. They've gone into some particularly the tentacled series of waters. It's foggy, it's misty, it's very Lovecraftian. There's monstrous creatures in the water pursuing the ship, Cylon fleet. And obviously you're the people, the passengers, the crew on board this liner, and you are trying to work out who's a bit fishier than they were earlier. So it kind of works, because this is the thing I was always on the fence with this. Can it work? Because the theme is so intertwined in Galactica, the board game. It works. Everything dovetails perfectly. Rather like Dune, the original Dune game. The theme and the game and mechanisms and all that are just seamlessly purring away together. Is Lovecraft splash onto this? Is it going to work as well? I just think back at Dune and Rex. Rex was FFG's reprint, essentially, retheming of Dune, the original Dune, 70s Dune game that I've just mentioned, into the Twilight Imperium universe in Rex. And all the meat is there, all the components there, all the stuff is purring along nicely. There is just this point where the theme and the game don't quite mesh. It works, but it doesn't work like that does. It's not smooth. It's this kind of metal grinding on metal. Like that's kind of what happens with that. So is this going to do that? I don't know. I don't mind the Arkham stuff. I've owned Eldritch Horror. The new investigators apparently in this new stuff. They've tweaked the design. Now I would be happy if they take all of this is FFG. I know we're talking about here. Obviously, Galactica had the base game, and then it had subsequently 3 expansions. Of those 3 expansions, there is bits to pick from them that is quite good, that enhances the game. The Pegasus, for instance, gives you the Pegasus, which is, and a few other nice tweak things. There's the Cylon board, that I think came in the Daybreak expansion or the Exodus expansion. That was great. There's a few bits you can piecemeal pick the good bits. For instance, I know, in here, in this box, the Pegasus box is actually full of all the stuff that is surplus requirements that I will probably never play in the game. All this crap is all extra bits and stuff and things that does stuff, but just adds more kind of clunk to the game. It kind of muddies it down, whereas kind of sleeker. Anyway, I'm rambling. So it would be cool to see if FFG could kind of dilute down all the good bits of the expansions, the bits that kind of, and bring that together in this base game, so you kind of get this complete sort of package. Could be kind of cool. I suspect, as we well know with FFG, that is not going to be the case. We're just going to get the base game kind of refined and tweaked, maybe. We'll see. If it works, and if it's maybe a little bit more streamlined than good old Galactica, then perhaps I might be tempted to pick it up purely to have that game experience, but maybe potentially in a different theme, and maybe the faster delivery time. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, that's out. They haven't officially announced it yet. They're teasing it. I'm presuming that's going to be kind of around Gen Con time. Well, they've now announced, actually, off the back of that, is there's a bunch of companies not going to Gen Con when it happens. And I believe Asmodee is one of them, which FFG is an off-crop of that. So we'll see. But anyway, at some point that's going to get announced. I'm presuming all the holding off for Essen. But we'll see. So the other news, big news that I saw that jumped out at me, though it hasn't had nearly the fanfare or noise or anything else, that may be a thing, the Arabian Nights, Tales of the Arabian Nights. The legendary storytelling board game in the world of Aladdin and Sinbad by Eric Goldberg. So I really enjoy Arabian Nights. Zman Games publish it sporadically. The big news is that they announced tail end of last week that they are doing one final print of this in this iteration. I don't think there's any major tweaks or changes to it. I think it's pretty much as this is. They're doing a reprint in the summer, and then that's it. They are dropping the license or losing the license. Eric, the designer, has got other ideas. He wants to move with it, run forward with it, and apparently Z-Man weren't in bed with that. I don't know. Anyway, he's got the rights back. So Z-Man will be doing this one final print run of this in the summer. Mainly, I believe, available directly from them, although some limited copies of it will be going to retail. It's a thematic game. It's a very big story. It's a random game. It's a bit reboundish. It's this sprawling sandbox adventure game. For some, it would be maddening. For others, I love it because it's just this crazy adventure. You can be turned into a fish and then change sex, and then just crazy shit can happen. And I love it because it's so random and so crazy. It's so out there. But you go on a story, and a hell of a story to tell. As I say, not for everyone. For families, definitely a good one. I don't play it nearly enough. I've played it a few times, but it's one I'm glad to own because it is kind of just this big. So yeah, Arabian Nights, if you're interested in it, want it, has always been on your list, then to pick up the Z-Man edition. Your time is running out and maybe limited. I didn't know this was out of print that badly, so I guess that's not going anywhere. But yeah, that's happening. Prison Architect. The Kickstarter was running for that. It's been pulled. They cancelled it. It wasn't massively funding. The Prison Architect, I can't say about it. One of these theme hospital, theme park games where you're controlling that thing, and this was a prison, and you could set up and at the time I played it as that style of game and thought, it's all right. I didn't went back to it massively. I just kind of mucked around with it. It was cheap, fine. This hit Kickstarter, and there was a huge furore over it, by all counts. People just having a major issue with the theme. Potentially people profiteering off of that, and they removed certain elements. I know there's no executions in the board game equivalent that there was apparently on the Steam version, and that people had done like virtual death camps, which is just going into a really fucked up way. But we're not going to go down there. Anyway, so this happened, and the designers have stepped away from it and said, fine, we're done. But they've handed the design back, I think, to the publishers. The project was pulled, and that appears to be the story of that. I wasn't really anyway with it, so it's not like it was a game I was invested in and wanted. This one kind of passed me by. I was like, oh, that happened? Oh. Anyway, that happened. Kickstarter. There's one called Adele, which is on there. I saw that. I think it was on BGG, and I clicked it just out of interest because a spaceship. It looks like a kind of 2001 cross with Event Horizon. It's one versus many game where the one person playing the AI of this ship, very Howl-like, is trying to murder everyone else on board, and the crew are trying to either escape or shut down the computer. And it's done by programmable movement. It kind of looked interesting. There's not really... The red flag for me was their production schedule. Had it being produced and shipped and done by, I think, October, which is a very short window. Anyway, let alone in a current climate where I know there's Kickstarter projects from the years last year or the year before that already suffered significant impacts to getting stuff along. So I like the theme. I can't really see much of the rules on the site yet. It looks okay. It's a reasonable buy-in on it. My red flag on that is there's no way it's going to hit that schedule. It is going to be delayed. So I'm not necessarily recommending it. Maybe one to look at. But yes, caveat that. Be cautious. Witcher, the old world is Kickstarter's running. I've dollar backed that for the minute. Just keep an eye on it. I like the theming in Witcher. I'm looking at it, and the game looks kind of like one of these sprawling narrative-based adventure games, but there's nothing on it aside from the $50 buy-in for the miniatures, which seems steep. But there is more being added, but more mechanically, I'm not sure it's doing anything that's particularly blowing my socks off. Theme's kind of cool, but there's nothing there that's, if you were to move, I'm struggling with. There's nothing really there that's kind of hooking me on the gameplay. That's anything that maybe I don't already have in some capacity or over a couple of boxes. So I don't know. I'm kind of fencing on that one at the moment. But that's where I am with that. Quickly, a few things. So I sent this in the post the other day. This is Sky Towers. I believe it is a forthcoming Kickstarter. There's also, you can get a print-to-play version from the site where this is, which is in small font at the top of this, and I have no chance of reading it without my glasses. I had some text up here, or a link will be at the bottom of the video. But Sky Towers, yet to play it, but it's either solo. There's 2 solo modes in this version, or you can play up to 4 players, and of you building these kind of towers, scoring points and stuff. This all kind of looks kind of cool, quite nice. I've shown overlaid. You've seen some of that as I've been talking. Wasn't it looking nice? When we get a couple of games in and I try the solo thing, I'll let you know, report back. Also, these turned up. These beauties turned up. So I ordered the Codex 2 cards from makeplayingcards.com. They did the Honor First Codex stuff, and that was pretty nice. The print quality. I mean, from what I remember from the Honor set, is they are just slightly smaller, a fraction smaller on the size of the actual proper cards, which is why I sleeved all my TI4 and eventually pop these in. But really, to be honest with you, this card quality is amazing. Linen, shining, looks really cool on that. So that adds some quality of life stuff. We get this deck of cards here, which is all of the races. It gives you the stats on what they have, all the stuff off the player board, but on a card board, and you can essentially either randomly use that to select players at the start of the game now, or give you the option of choice, but you've got a deck of cards you can pass around rather than these big sheets. And there's a nice sort of reference you can keep there in front of you if you need it. So that's kind of a cool quality of life thing. And then the rest of it was a couple of legendary artifacts, which is nice to have more of those in the game. And these cards here for all the different alien species. And what it does here just gives you basically the lowdown on what their promissory note will do. It's a quite nice little reminder. If you hand your promissory note away, you then don't remember necessarily what it does because you don't have that information anywhere else. So now you can keep one of those in front of you, and it will give you a hint of what that is. Well, it'll tell you exactly what it does. So it's nice. It doesn't bite you in the arse necessarily. So mainly all of that stuff, quality of life improvements for TI4. I like the codex. I like what they're doing. They're adding these little things. They also add some maps that you can play, different size player size maps and scenarios sometimes. So it's adding loads of little things. Vicious rumour is that at some point FG are going to compile all of this together in, I guess, a box to buy it all. But to be fair, I think that was about 20 quid, maybe less, to get that set of cards printed up and done, which I don't mind really. And I did it the other one. I maybe less than 20 quid, but it was not a bad price for that, and it's kind of cool to have it. Cool. Oh, right. What have we played? Because that happened. We played some games.
What's Mike played? I really want to know what Mike's played. What you played, Mike? Oh, and you other guys.
Finally, we settled down. We played Space Race. Ben backed out Kickstarter. I vaguely remember it. I'm looking at it and liking the art of the cards. I like the illustration look of it, and was kind of enticed by the idea of you essentially set, I think, from starts from 1950s through to modern day, the sort of the space race, the development of NASA, or the equivalent Chinese or Russian government's versions of that, Chinese space agency or whatever. Anyway, you are doing that, so it's kind of cool. You got big space rocket ship player markers, and the idea is you're playing cards for your hand. It's a weird. So you've got two types of cards. You've got lots of cards going on. They're all multi-use cards. There's 4 suits essentially of different areas that they play out in, and they have these color bars across there. So you're making a tableau of cards in front of you, buying from certain ones off the board. You've got cards you're discarding to put into a deck that you're going to be able to buy from. So there's some tactics there to that. And everyone's got a set of the same set of master cards, I call them, which are like cards that you play to prime and activate what you've put in front of you. In a nutshell, we're not going too complex on that. So there's a lot going, a lot of moving parts. We kind of, Ben had skimmed the rules, so we got going. It was relatively, actual mechanisms of the game are relatively straightforward. It's pretty much you're going to do a round of doing this, do that, do that. The board kind of has it all laid out. So for 4 or 5 rounds of stuff happening, if you follow the process through towards the end of our play of it, it made kind of sense. All of the meat, all of the potatoes, all of the gravy is on those cards, is all building this tableau of stuff, is actions that you want to slowly over the period of the rounds of the game, as you're scoring points, hit it and get its maximum value of it every time. And actions when they use shut off, but there's ways of sometimes refreshing them. So there's a lot going on there. And I kind of enjoyed what it was doing. There's areas on the board you put meeples on and you can score points off them certain rounds. The rounds that you score on are, I believe, randomised to a certain extent. All of the actions on the board are randomised to a certain extent. So there's a lot of stuff. However, all of that was kind of heady and cool, but the actual theme was totally non-existent. Yes, we're supposed to be building a space agency, and that's what we're doing. Bob was very excited about the prospect of launching a space rocket, but there isn't that style of game. You're not building a rocket and launching it. You're kind of doing these abstracted stuff in relation to scoring points to move your rocket through the ages, generations of stuff. And there's lovely art on the cards, but there's no flavour to any of it. There's no flavour text. All the cards are there, and you can sometimes work out by looking at them, oh, that's so-and-so off that, and oh, that's him. And some of them are historical figures. Lando Calrissian was one of my cards, I'm sure. I was told it's not, but, you know. Anyway, yeah, so there is these vague historical or cultural figures on there, or events. But unless you actually know what they are or what they relate to, that's pretty much all you get. You don't get anything else to go off of that. You've just got this pretty picture. So the theme is kind of non-existent, really, other than if you know what you're doing. But it really just doesn't. It just kind of dissipates. You're kind of into this, focused into this card play and what's going on. Which, while it's fun, was a good brain burn and something I'd almost kind of like to revisit, have another go at, because I quite enjoyed what it was doing. Now I know kind of what it's doing. But the theme is not there. I don't feel like I'm building a space agency. I don't feel like I didn't feel like any of that was happening. But yeah, so I wouldn't massively recommend it unless you're already invested in that card play game. But I'm pretty certain there's other card engine buildery type multi-use cards that have a theme better working with it. I'm just thinking, I mean, even like Imperial Settlers and stuff kind of comes to mind. It's just that feels more like what you're doing, whereas this kind of very abstracted. But, you know, mechanically wise, was fun, was enjoyable, a good twist of the old noggin, but thematically wise, I wasn't invested. And I felt everyone was kind of in the same boat on that from that game we played of it. But yeah, go. Next up, we played Dune Imperium. So it was another player, the second 4-player game of this. And I really enjoy it. I really like what it's doing. Now we knew what the stakes were. We knew what was going to happen and what was going on. That battle board segment of the game, really hot, contested area. A lot more tactical use of troops going in there as well as everything else. It's just generally it's kind of all kind of smooth together, much nicer. Felt, you know, as you would as subsequent plays of games. So yeah, I think it captures that Dune theme, but I also like I like the deck building element of it. I like the worker placement combined with this fight sequence on the board. It's all kind of a really nice mix of stuff going on, and it feels thematic to the Dune universe. So yeah, I enjoyed that, and I definitely want to dig into some more of that. I also used there was an app that's available for the game. It has a solo stuff on it, but it also has this had some actually little nuggets of meat. I can't remember the name of what it was called, but essentially it's another bit you run during the game, and every round it will either make areas of the board a bit more rewarding if you go to it, or offer options to the players. Just a little bit more interactivity and a little bit more kind of stuff going on. Just spices up the game a bit more. That was quite a nice addition. I quite liked it. It didn't massively overcomplicate anything. It played with the more complex characters, or I certainly did. And they weren't massively more complex, but I suppose I can see that you want to get a base idea of the game before you do it. But yeah, generally, Dune Imperium, so far, I'm loving all what it's doing. A heady mix of, as I say, of worker placement, card engine building, worker placement, and fighting, and more worker placement. If any of that is a thing and you like a bit of Dune, then there's a lot to recommend. That's kind of cool, on the caveat as it seems to work better at the higher player count. So that was it. Other than that, we played Don't Mess with Cthulhu a couple of times over the previous nights, Crack-a-Lack and Poker, stuff like that. So lighter fare, all good stuff, but we've covered that before. But they were the two big sort of meat of our game playing this weekend. Hoping on the agenda is the stuff that, especially on the Sunday crew, we've discussed. Is we want to have a look at BSG. Kemet is one that's cropped up that we want to have a look at. 51st State, want to get that to the table. I want to try and get the detective game to the table, the Cold War one from Portal. Maybe that will probably be on the Friday night crowd because there's a larger group and that will play better to a bigger group, and a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, so all that's going on. Ramble. Quickly, stuff I've been watching. I had run my eyes over Midnight Run the other day. The old Charles Grodin had passed us by, bless him. This is a cracking movie, 1980s. Robert De Niro is a bounty hunter. Grodin is the guy he's trying to catch, the Duke. Really good cast, actually. Yefat Koto is an FBI agent. It's fantastic in it. Some really good gags. De Niro is funny in this. Like actually funny rather than embarrassing uncle funny in his later part of his career. But this is really tight, really well done. Good gags, some good action. It's a good movie. I'm sure a lot of you with any sense and taste knows about this already, but if you don't know about Midnight Run, you really need to go and see that film now. Sort it out. And kind of mix it up a bit weird, a bit that, and a bit this, and a bit of the Royal Tenenbaums, because I haven't seen that for a while. And I just this is kind of just a melancholy comfort blanket of a movie. I just love Wes Anderson style. I do like some of his framing of his shots and just the detail and the characters and these kind of just funny, but not funny, aha, just kind of, ooh. It's kind of, I don't know, it's something about them, they're really nice. I love the Life Aquatic, it's fantastic, and well, generally stuff. And his animated outputs were really cool. But the Royal Tenenbaums, Gene Hammond, brilliant. All the cast, fantastic on that. That's it, really. Yes, that's it for this week, I think. I've got one more night of work to get ahead for me, and then I am off. So hopefully I can get some content produced while I'm doing that. We shall see. Thank you for tuning in. This has been this for the moment. There'll be more of some other later. Until then, this is Mike B from Who Dares Well saying goodbye. Thank you and good night.